Have you ever met someone and instantly thought, yeah, no, I hate this person? And here's the thing. You think you have this special gift to be able to judge people immediately after you meet them, that you can just feel their aura and it's bad. Well, sorry guys, there's another reason for it. You see, you're actually running ancient mental software that makes snap decisions in milliseconds, and it's wrong more often than you might think. There are 5 specific things that are quietly running in the background every time you meet someone. Some of it's psychological, some of it's evolutionary, and some of it's just kinda crazy. Point 1. Your brain is lazy and it's proud of it. Alright, this one sets the whole thing up, so pay attention. Your brain hates doing work. That's not an insult, it's just biology. The human brain burns a ridiculous amount of energy just existing, so whenever it can take a shortcut, it absolutely will. Scientists call this cognitive ease. You might call it being mentally tired. When you meet someone, your brain doesn't sit down and think, okay, let me carefully evaluate this person. No, not the way it works. It sprints through a mental file cabinet of every person you've ever met, every face you've ever seen, every experience you've had, and it tries to match it with someone else. Does this person remind me of someone I trust or someone who made my life worse? Found a match? Judgment made. Done. That whole process takes less than a second. And here's where it gets embarrassing. You could despise someone just because they have the same walk as your college roommate, who borrowed $20 and never paid you back. That's it. That's the whole reason. Your brain filed slouchy walk under bad human, and now this completely innocent stranger is paying for someone else's debt. No trial, no evidence, just vibes rooted in someone else's mistake. So yeah, your first impressions have been lying to you, which leads us to why those impressions feel so true. Point 2, you trust your gut. But your gut can sometimes be a little bit wrong. There's this idea that gut feelings are wise, that your instincts have seen things your conscious brain hasn't. And okay, sometimes that's true, but sometimes your gut is just old anxiety wearing a confident hat. Here's what's actually happening. Your brain tracks patterns, constantly, and when something feels off about a person, what you're actually detecting might just be unfamiliarity. Psychologists call this the mere exposure effect. Basically, the more you've seen something or someone, the more you like it. The less familiar something is, the more your brain goes on a low-level alert. Not danger exactly, just that subtle, something is different here feeling. So if you grew up in a specific place, around specific kinds of people, your brain learned a pattern. And anyone who doesn't match that pattern gets a tiny invisible flag. Not because they're bad, just because they're different. Which is kind of wild when you think about it. Your brain built a template and now it's gatekeeping your social life. And you didn't even get a vote. Now, before we get to point 3, can you do something quick? If you're getting anything out of this, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below. It seriously helps and takes about 4 seconds. Okay, back to it. Point 3. Your nervous system is still living in a prehistoric forest. So here's the thing. A big chunk of how you read people isn't about logic at all. It's your nervous system doing a threat scan. Back when humans were much more likely to get eaten by something, reading a stranger's face fast was genuinely survival-level useful. Is this person safe? Are they a threat? Do I run? Your brain still does this. Every single time. It scans faces for microsignals, posture, eye contact, even how someone is holding their jaw, and it makes a call. The problem is the world changed, and your threat detector didn't get the update. So now it's scanning a guy at a coffee shop the same way it would scan a stranger at the edge of a forest about 20,000 years ago. This shows up in something called thin slicing. The brain takes a tiny slice of information and extrapolates an entire personality from it. And it's shockingly accurate sometimes. Studies show people can detect certain traits from just a few seconds of video with no sound. But here's the catch. Thin slicing works best in familiar contexts. Put someone in a slightly different setting, Slightly different lighting, slightly different energy that day, and your thoughts about that person can flip completely. You don't hate that person. Your nervous system had a weird moment. Big difference. Point 4. You judge people by how they make you feel about yourself. Here's a question. Have you ever instantly disliked someone who was really confident? Or really attractive? Or just seemed to have their life together in a way that felt slightly annoying? Yeah, that's not really about them, is it? Psychologists have a concept called social comparison theory. So, basically, humans constantly measure themselves against other people. It's automatic. You see someone, your brain runs a quiet little comparison, and then based on the result, you either feel good about yourself or you feel threatened. When someone triggers that threatened feeling, your brain sometimes copes by finding reasons to hate them. Oh, they're probably fake, or arrogant, or that confidence is probably covering something. And so you start building a case. You're not actually judging them, you're managing your own emotional state and using them as the villain to do it. There can either be a downward or upward social comparison. When you find someone doing worse than you, it makes you kind of like that person. Or when you find someone doing better than you, it makes you kind of hate them. The last person you randomly disliked for no clear reason, were they actually bad? Or were they just doing well? Think about that. Point 5. First impressions stick, even when they're wrong. So now you know your brain is lazy, biased, threat scanning, and occasionally jealous. Haha, no offense. But here's maybe the most important part. Once it makes that call, it really doesn't want to change it. This is called confirmation bias. Your brain, once it has a first impression, starts collecting evidence that supports it and quietly ignores evidence that doesn't. You meet someone and decide they're arrogant. From that moment, everything they do gets filtered. They speak confidently. Arrogant. They don't make eye contact. Arrogant. They laugh at their own joke. Obviously arrogant. But if your first impression had been that they were charming, that same laugh would be endearing. The confidence would be attractive. Same person. Completely different story. The first impression doesn't just color how you see them. It writes the script and then casts them in it permanently. This is why some people never get a second chance that actually works. The brain gave them a role and they're playing it whether they like it or not. Okay, so let's sum it all up. Here's what's actually going on when you instantly like or hate someone. Your brain is running shortcuts based on past experiences. It's scanning for threat using hardware that hasn't updated since prehistoric times. It's comparing you to them quietly, whether you want it to or not, and then it's locking that judgment in and defending it. None of this makes you a bad person. It makes you a human with a very energetically efficient brain that is sometimes extremely wrong about other human beings. The takeaway: you don't have to trust every first impression. You can be curious about people instead of stubborn about them. That one shift actually opens up a lot. Some of the best relationships people have started with mutual, unexplained, completely irrational dislike. And also, some of your snap judgments can actually be right. The brain isn't always wrong. That part matters too. But the real trick is knowing the difference. And you're already better at it now than you were 5 minutes ago. Before you go, if you've got a take on this, put it in the comments. I want to hear it. Please like the video if it made you think. And subscribe if you want more of this kind of stuff. There's more coming. And it's gonna be good.